In a tight Cape Verde-Saudi Arabia game, you can't be a one-man attack if the striker's marked out. You need a winger who can beat his man or a midfielder who can slip that one-killer pass between the lines. Those are the moments that turn a KG 0-0 into a lead.
This is still priced like a coin flip with Saudi and Cape Verde, both in the mid to high range, and a very heavy wall of sellers sitting above the market, especially on Saudi. With the official score still unknown, at 8 minutes, nobody's committing until a confirmed first goal forces a real repricing. This is still a straight coin flip with Saudi and Cape Verde both in the mid to high range, and the sell side looks stacked enough to cap any early drift. With no official score confirmed at 8 minutes, the first verified goal is what finally forces this market to pick a side. This book is still a near coin flip with Cape Verde and Saudi both around the highs, but the sell side, the liquidity is heavy, especially on Saudi, so any pop higher looks capped quickly. With the official score still unknown at 8 minutes, the first confirmed goal is the moment that should finally force a real separation.
Pre-match, it really can come down to that. One fearless match winner, the teenager who wants it on the half turn and can beat two men, or the striker who needs just one clean look to punish you. In a tight Cape Verde Saudi Arabia game, one break decision in the final third can decide everything. All the chat pre-match is about that year-old with the swagger to take over, and if he really starts today, you'll watch every first touch like it's a statement. In a tight Cape Verde Saudi Arabia game, it's that fearless half turn between the lines that can flip the whole match. We're 8 minutes in for Cape Verde against Saudi Arabia, and the official feed still hasn't given us a confirmed score or any key incident. In this kind of uncertainty, both teams just have to stay disciplined, clean first touches, no cheap fouls, and no risky passes through the middle. All eyes pre-match are on that veteran goalkeeper. If he can put the recent wobble behind him and make 1 or 2 big early saves, you can feel the whole back line settle. That's how you buy your team time to grow into the game instead of panicking at the first scare. Pre-match, that returning veteran is the headline years away, not quite at his sharpest in this tournament, and tonight he's got to stamp himself on it early. One clean, decisive moment, whether it's a pass that breaks a line or a big defensive action, can set the tone for Cape Verde versus Saudi Arabia.
Cape Verde and Saudi are still basically level in the mid-range, but the draw is a touch softer, and the sell side looks heavy across the board, especially on Saudi. With the official score still unconfirmed at 8 minutes, this market's staying cautious until a verified breakthrough forces it to choose a leader.
Cape Verde really are being talked up as the feel-good story, unbeaten, fearless, and suddenly believing they belong on this stage. But when your fate's in your own hands, the key is handling the moment. Play with freedom, yes, but keep the basics clean and don't let nerves write the script. We're still about 8 minutes into Cape Verde versus Saudi Arabia, and the official feed hasn't confirmed the scoreline or any key incident yet. In that kind of uncertainty, it's all about staying compact, keeping passes safe, and not conceding a needless free kick in your own hands. We're still in the early stages of Cape Verde against Saudi Arabia, and with no confirmed score or key incident coming through, you keep it simple. Protect the middle, win your second balls, and don't hand over cheap set pieces. This is the kind of start where one sloppy touch can create the first real chance. Cape Verde have been built as a Cinderella story, unbeaten and suddenly playing like they belong on this stage, but the real test is handling the weight of a historic night. If they keep their passing simple and their decision-making calm, that freedom can still show up in the final third.
This market's still a near coin flip with Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia both in the mid-range, but the sell side is piled up, especially on Saudi. So upside looks capped unless buyers get aggressive. With the official score still unconfirmed around 8 minutes, it's basically waiting for one verified breakthrough to force separation. Pricing is still basically a coin flip with Cape Verde and Saudi both in the mid-range, while the draw sits a bit lower and the sell side looks heavy above the market. With the official score still unconfirmed around 8 minutes, nobody's pressing the accelerator until a verified first goal forces separation.
We're still around the 8-minute mark in Cape Verde versus Saudi Arabia, and we've got no confirmed score or key incident on the official feed yet. In this kind of fog, both teams have to keep the distances tight and avoid the one sloppy pass that gives a cheap transition. Cape Verde have turned this into a real underdog surge, unbeaten, fearless, and suddenly playing like they belong on the biggest stage. But nights like this are about handling the moment. Keep the first pass clean, don't force it through the middle, and make Saudi Arabia earn every inch. Cape Verde have put themselves in a dream position with that unbeaten start, but this is the dangerous moment when history starts sitting on your shoulders and every touch feels heavier. Saudi Arabia will love the role of spoiler here. Stay patient, stay organized, and pounce on the first mistake.
Pre-match pricing is still basically a coin flip with Cape Verde and Saudi both in the mid-range and a big wall of sell liquidity sitting above the market, especially on Saudi. With the official score still unknown at 8 minutes, this stays range-bound until a confirmed first goal forces the market to finally pick a leader.
Saudi Arabia's motivation is crystal clear too. They've got a real shot at reaching the knockout rounds for the first time since 10994, and they'd love nothing more than to puncture this Cape Verde fairy tale. In a game like that, it's about staying organized and waiting for the underdogs. First, nervous touch.
Cape Verde and Saudi are still priced almost dead even in the mid to high range. With the draw lower and a big stack of sell liquidity sitting above, especially on Saudi, so upside looks capped for now. With the official
We're still in the opening minutes of Cape Verde versus Saudi Arabia, and the official feed hasn't confirmed a score or any key incident yet. In this kind of start, both teams will prioritize clean first touches and staying compact. No cheap turnovers, no needless fouls to invite pressure. We're still early in Cape Verde versus Saudi Arabia, and with no confirmed score or major incident coming through, it's a game for discipline and patience. Keep your back line connected, play the first pass safely, and don't get the cheap set piece that changes the whole night. We're about 8 minutes in between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia, and there's still no confirmed scoreline or key incident coming through. In this kind of quiet opening, it's all about clean first touches and smart decisions. No cheap fouls, no risky passes that hand over momentum. We're still around the 8-minute mark in Cape Verde against Saudi Arabia, and there's still no confirmed score or key incident coming through on the official feed. In this kind of cagey opening, it's about clean first touches and keeping your defensive line connected. No cheap giveaways, no needless fouls. With this expanded Team World Cup, the group stage just stretches the tension out, more permutations, more pressure, and you can't afford a dead spell. For Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia, it's about staying in the qualification conversation right to that final match day, every point guarded like gold. We're still around the 8-minute mark in Cape Verde versus Saudi Arabia, and the official feed hasn't confirmed a score or any key incident yet. In this kind of start, both teams just have to keep the first pass clean and the back line connected. No cheap turnover, that flips the game.
Cape Verde and Saudi are still basically a coin flip in the mid-range, with the draw in the highs and noticeably more sell liquidity stacked above than bids below, so upside looks capped. With no official score confirmed at 8 minutes, this stays a waiting market until a verified first goal forces a real split.
Cape Verde really are one of the stories of this tournament. Tiny nation, huge belief, and they've already shown they won't be overawed by bigger names. But that historic night talk can tighten your touch. So, the key is simple: keep the first pass clean and don't force the risky ball. With VAR hovering over everything, the referee's first couple of decisions can set the temperature fast in Cape Verde versus Saudi Arabia. Early on, defenders have to stay on their feet in the box and time those tackles. One rash lunge and the whole match can swing.
Cape Verde are a slight market leader in the high range with Saudi just behind, and the book still shows far more sell liquidity overhead than bids underneath, so any move up looks capped. With no official score confirmed around 8 minutes, this stays a tense stalemate until a verified breakthrough forces the first real separation. Cape Verde are a narrow market leader in the highs, with Saudi just a shade behind, and the draw sits in the highs. But there's still a lot of sell liquidity stacked overhead, keeping things contained. With the score still unconfirmed early, this stays a waiting market until the first verified goal forces a real split.
Cape Verde expected to line up 3-3 tonight, and with those changes in the XI, the big test is whether that front three can link up quickly and press together as one unit. If the midfield can step in behind them at the right moments, that shit can really pin Saudi Arabia in early.
Cape Verde are a slim favorite around the high mark with Saudi just behind and the draw on the highs, but there's still a big wall of offers overhead keeping this range bound. With no official score confirmed yet, the first verified goal is what finally forces this market to pick a side.
With Francois Letessier in the middle and VAR watching every angle, those first 2 or 3 foul calls will tell both backlines what they can get away with. If you're on a yellow already, you got to defend with your feet and your positioning. No late clips, no desperate grabs.
Cape Verde are still a slim favorite in the high range with Saudi just behind, and the book remains top heavy with offers, so any rally looks capped unless fresh buying steps in. With the official score still unconfirmed at 8 minutes, this stays a holding pattern until a verified breakthrough forces the first real split.
With Francois Letessier in the middle and Verde checking every angle, those first couple of whistles will set the boundaries fast. Saudi Arabia's players already on yellows have to defend with body shape and timing. No late contact, no hands, because the next decision can change everything.
Cape Verde still edges it at roughly 3-9 versus Saudi around 3-5, with the draw near 2-7, and the book looks top heavy on the offer side, so there's no clean breakout yet. With the score still officially unknown at 8 minutes, this stays a holding pattern until a confirmed first goal forces the market to pick a leader.
This Houston stadium has been a goal-friendly venue, and that can loosen the mindset early. Both Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia will feel chances will come if they keep making forward runs. The danger is you get seduced into forcing it, and one sloppy transition can punish you fast.
Cape Verde still holds a slim edge, just under 4-0 with Saudi mids and the draw highs, and the book remains offer heavy, so there's no clean breakout. With the official score still unconfirmed, 8 minutes in, this stays a waiting market until a verified first goal forces separation.
Cape Verde looks set to stick with that 4-3-3, but with changes in the XI, the real question is chemistry. Can the front three press together and still find the striker early? If the midfield support arrives a second late, Saudi Arabia will have space to break straight through the middle. All the chat around Bazina makes sense. When your keeper starts claims, his box and talks his backline through the first few minutes, it settles everyone. With Cape Verde making changes, that calm presence behind them could be the difference between nerves and real belief. And we are underway. First half begins. Cape Verde against Saudi Arabia, and it's so on the clock at 1 minute. Early on, it's all about that first clean touch and the first clean decision, because with VAR in the background, one missed time challenge can flip the whole mood instantly.
Cape Verde are a narrow favorite around 3-9 with Saudi near 3-5 and the draw about 2-8. And the book still looks top heavy with offers, so there's no clean breakout. At 0-0 in the first minute, the market's basically saying, show us the first real chance before it commits. Cape Verde still holds a slim edge in the high range with Saudi in the mids and the draw in the highs, and the book stays offer heavy, so there's no clean breakout yet. At 0-0, this early, the market's basically waiting for the first clear chance to force a real separation. Cape Verde are a marginal favorite in the high range with Saudi close behind in the mids, and the draw sits just under 3-0 with the book still heavily stacked on the sell side. At 0-0, in the first minute, that top-heavy liquidity says the market won't chase until a clean early chance or bull forces it. Cape Verde still shaded in the high range with Saudi mids in the draw just under 3-0, and the book is still top-heavy on the sell side, so any early uptake looks capped. At 0-0, 2 minutes in, this stays at patience market until someone lands the first clean chance. Cape Verde still barely the pricing in the highs, with Saudi right behind in the draw just under 3-0, and the book remains heavy with offers, so upside looks capped. At 0-0 this early, it's still a waiting game until one clean chance forces traders to finally lean one way. Cape Verde are still a slight market leader in the highs, with Saudi close behind, and the order book looks heavily offer stacked, so there's no real push either way yet. At 0-0, 3 minutes in, that pricing says the game state is still neutral, and the first clear chance is what will force separation.
3 minutes in and it's still 0-0, but there's an early worry for Cape Verde's captain after a nasty knee-to-knee clash. If he's feeling that, it can really blunt their composure and leadership in these opening exchanges. 3 minutes gone, it's so, and you can feel the weight of that pre-match silence still hanging in the stadium. Football pauses, and then it asks the players to carry on. Sometimes that shared emotion sharpens focus. Sometimes it tightens legs, especially this early. 4 minutes in, Saudi Arabia concede the foul. Saad Abdulhamid clips Jao Paulo, and Cape Verde win a free kick deep in their own half with it still 0-0. Early whistle like that tells you the referee's not letting late contact slide, and it gives Cape Verde a moment to settle and play out.
Pricing is basically a coin flip. Cape Verde just under 4, Saudi mids draw just under 3-0, and the book is still stacked with sell-side liquidity, so nothing's breaking out yet. At 0-0 this early, that says traders want a real first chance before they commit to either side. Cape Verde and Saudi...
4 minutes in, and Saad Abdulhamid goes into the book for Saudi Arabia for a bad foul, and it stays 0-0 at 5 minutes. That's an early handbrake for him. Now everyone Vundul has to be clean because Cape Verde will happily invite contact and win set pieces. 5 minutes gone and it's still 0-0, but that early yellow for Saudi Arabia is a real warning shot from Letexier. Abdulhamid now has to defend on angles and timing because one more rash step in and Cape Verde will happily draw the next whistle and build confidence.
Cape Verde still have the thinnest edge in the highs with Saudi right on their shoulder in the mids, and the book is massively stacked on the sell side, so any pop looks capped. At 0-0 after that early Saudi yellow, the market's saying no separation yet unless Cape Verde turns set pieces into real danger.
5 minutes in and it's still 0-0, but you can already sense Cape Verde aren't here to just sit in. They're trying to play out and take touches in midfield. With Abdulhamid on an early yellow, that ambition could tempt Saudi Arabia into another rash challenge if they press too aggressively.
Cape Verde still shaded at roughly 3-7, with Saudi around 3-5, and the draw near 3-0. And the book is overwhelmingly offer heavy, so any early drift or pop should get absorbed quickly. At 0-0 after that early Saudi yellow, the next clean Cape Verde set piece chance is the moment that can finally force this market to pick a side. Cape Verde and Saudi are still basically neck and neck in the mid-range with a draw around 3-0, and the book remains heavily offer stacked. So any early move looks capped. At 0-0 with that Saudi defender already on a yellow, the next dangerous Cape Verde set piece is where pricing can finally tilt. Cape Verde still barely lead around the high range with Saudi, just a tick behind in the draw near 3-0, and the book remains heavily offer stacked. So any early move should get sold into. At 0-0 in the 6th minute, that early, Saudi yellow only matters if Cape Verde turn the next set piece into a real chance.
7 minutes gone, still 0-0, and Kevin Pino wins. Cape Verde a free kick back in the defensive half. That's another little pause and play that lets them breathe, get their shake set, and build from the back without Saudi snapping into them late again.
Cape Verde still hold a slim edge in the high range with Saudi right behind, and the book remains heavily offer stacked, so any early uptick is likely to be capped. At 0-0 on 7 minutes, that keeps the market in. Wait for a real chance mode rather than reacting to routine free kicks.
7 minutes gone and it's still 0-0, and you can feel both teams just probing with safe passes rather than forcing that first killer ball. With Saud Abdulhamid already on a yellow, Saudi Arabia have to be a touch more measured in how they step in and press. 7 minutes in and it's still 0-0, and you can see why. The tempo's cautious. Both sides are happy to recycle it and build from the back. The big question is when Saudi Arabia dare to squeeze higher, because Abdulhamid's early yellow makes every aggressive press a calculated risk. 8 minutes played and it's still 0-0. A really careful start with both teams, happy to recycle possession and build from deep rather than force the first risky ball. The tactical trigger is whether Saudi Arabia step up to press, but with Abdulhamid already booked, that front foot defending has to be timed perfectly. 8 minutes gone and it's still 0-0, but the whistle's busy now. Saudi Arabia win a free kick on that left wing after Deroy Duarte clips Salam Al-Dawsari. Cape Verde had to be careful here because giving away wide set pieces is exactly how you invite early chaos into a cautious start.
It's still basically a dead heat. Both sides sit in the mid-range with the draw around 3, and the book is offer heavy, so any little swing should get absorbed. At 0 on 8 minutes that wide, Saudi free kick is the first moment that could force a real tilt if it turns into a clean chance. The market's still a near coin flip in the mid-range for both sides with the draw around 3-0, and the book is so offer heavy that any little uptick.
9 minutes in, Ivan Pino goes into the book for Cape Verde for a bad foul, and it stays 0-0. That's now a yellow on each side in the opening 10, so every tackle out wide has to be cleaner. One mistimed lunge, and you're handing over dangerous set-piece territory. 9 minutes in, it's still 0-0, and you can already feel the group match sitting on the shoulders out there. Cape Verde can afford patience, but Saudi Arabia looked like the side that may have to edge the line higher. Carefully, with Abdulhamid already on a booking.
Prices are still basically a three-way split, with Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia in the mids and the draw around 3-0. And that huge sell side stack says any little uptick gets capped fast. 0-0 on 1-0 minutes, the market's still waiting for the first real chance to break this deadlock in pricing. Win odds are still basically level in the mids for both sides, with a draw around 3-0, and the book remains heavily offer stacked, so any tiny swing should get sold into. At 0-0 on 1-0 minutes, it'll likely take a first clear-cut chance rather than these early yellows to force a real favorite.
10 minutes gone and it's still 0-0, but you can feel the Cape Verde story pulling the crowd right into every little moment. In a tight start like this, that noise can lift their decision-making. One brave touch, one extra run without them forcing the first pass. 11 minutes in and it's still 0-0, and you get the feeling Saudi Arabia can't stay in second gear for long here. If they do push that press higher, it has to be controlled. Both fullbacks already know one mistimed step and you're gifting Cape Verde another cheap set piece.
The market's still a three-way split, with Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia both in the mid-Cs, and the draw around 3S and that sell-side depth looks ready to cap any early spike. At 1 minutes, it's still priced like one clean Saudi chance could be the first real separator.
11 minutes gone, still 0-0, and you can feel Saudi Arabia's need for a win simmering under every pass. The danger is that urgency turns into sloppy bowels again. Both sides already booked out wide, so the next challenge could hand over a huge set-piece moment.
Win probabilities are still basically a three-way split, with Saudi just a hair ahead of Cape Verde in the mids and the draw around 3-0, and the sell side remains stacked to cap any quick spike. At 0-0 on 1 minutes, it's still priced like one clean Saudi attack is the first thing that can force real separation. Saudi Arabia have inched to a tiny edge in the mid-range, and the bid side behind them looks noticeably deeper, so the market's leaning their way without really breaking. At 0-0 on 2 minutes, it says one clean Saudi spell of pressure could finally force a clearer favorite.
12 minutes played and it's still 0-0, but you can see Cape Verde's Verasani CI shape is built to explode forward the moment they win it, especially with the fullbacks ready to serve. Saudi Arabia had to kill those transitions early, just without another chief foul in wide areas.
It's still a near dead heat with both teams priced in the mid-sin range and the draw around 3-0, and the book looks offer heavy, so any little rally should meet sellers quickly. At 0-0 after 2 minutes, that keeps it in first real chance wins the narrative territory, especially if Saudi can build pressure without another rash foul.
We've got a delay at 3 minutes involving Cape Verde, and it's still 0-0. It's been a stop-start opening anyway with the referee busy and both sides already in the book, so this little pause just breaks the rhythm again before they get going.
We're back to a dead heat. Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia are both sitting in the mid-range with the draw around 3-0, and the sell side still looks stacked to fade any small pop. At 0-0 on 2 minutes, it stays a first. Clear chance sets the favorite kind of market.
13 minutes, still 0-0, and Cape Verde win a free kick deep in their own half as Nasser Al-Dassari clips Gial Paulo. With the match already stop-start into early bookings, Saudi Arabia have to be careful. These late challenges don't keep handing Cape Verde cheap ways to reset and breathe.
Cape Verde are a shade in front in the high range with Saudi just behind, and the book is still massively offer stacked, so any little move should get sold into quickly. At 0-0 in the 1-3 minute after that stop-start delay, it still feels like one proper chance is what finally forces a clear favorite. Cape Verde are still a slight market lean in the highs with Saudi just behind in the draw near 3-0, and that heavy sell side depth suggests any uptick gets capped quickly. At 0-0 in the 1-3 after that stoppage, it's still waiting for one clean chance to finally separate the pricing. Cape Verde are still a narrow lean in the high range with Saudi, just a touch behind and the draw sitting around the lows, so it's basically a three-way market with no real breakout yet. At 0-0 on 4 minutes, that says the first genuinely dangerous Saudi spell is still the likeliest trigger to flip this into a clearer favorite. Cape Verde are still a slight market lean in the mid to highs with Saudi just a touch behind, and a draw around the low 3-0s with heavy sell side depth still capping any quick pop. At 0-0 on 4 minutes, it stays priced for Saudi pressure to be the next thing that forces a clear favorite.
15 minutes gone in Houston, and it's still 0-0. And that heat and humidity factor can quietly creep into your legs, even in a comfortable stadium. With this already a stop-start opening in early bookings, the team that stays composed in the tackles and manages the tempo will gain an edge.
Cape Verde still hold a slim edge in the mids with Saudi right behind the draw just over 3-0, and the book is so offer heavy. It's built to fade any little uptick. At 0-0 on 5 minutes, that keeps the game priced for one clean Saudi spell to flip the favorite rather than a slow drift. Pricing is still basically a three-way split in the mid-stat with a draw just over 3-0, and the order book looks heavily offer stacked. So any little move should get sold into at 0-0 after 5 minutes. It's still waiting for Saudi to put together one clean attacking spell to force a clearer favorite.
16 minutes gone, still 0-0, and the referees already had to step in with a drop ball and a couple of those borderline challenges. In a game this tight, the players had to stay on their feet and keep their heads because one flash of frustration can swing momentum fast.
Prices are still a near three-way split in the mid-ser range with Cape Verde only a whisker ahead and the draw just over 3-0, and the book looks very sell-heavy, so breakout should get capped. At 0-0 on 6 minutes, that keeps it set up for one Saudi spell of pressure to finally swing the favorite. The market's basically dead level again with both sides around the mid-range and the draw just over 3-0. And that offer-heavy book suggests any little swing gets sold into fast. At 0-0 on 7 minutes, it's still priced for Saudi to be the team most likely to create the first real momentum shift.
17 minutes in, it's still 0 in the Verde. Riotous moments look like they're coming the instant they win it and go straight down the line. If they keep turning that first defender near halfway and driving forward from wide areas, Saudi Arabia will be forced to retreat in a hurry.
The pricing's still basically a dead heat in the mids for both sides, with the draw just over 3-0, and that offer-heavy book says any little spike is likely to get sold down quickly. At 0-0 on 7 minutes, it's still set up for one sustained Saudi attacking spell to finally force a clear favorite. Market still a near three-way split in the mid-range, with Saudi Arabia just a hair ahead of Cape Verde and the draw around the lows. And that heavy sell-side depth
18 minutes gone and it's still 0-0, but Saudi Arabia are starting to pull Cape Verde from side to side, and you can see the gaps trying to open.
The
key is that next pass has to be snapped in quicker because Cape Verde are collapsing into the box fast and getting blocks in. "18 minutes gone, it's still 0-0, and you can sense that underdog belief in Cape Verde. When they get a touch, they're not hiding. They're looking to play and then spring forward. The big test is whether they can stay brave in possession without gifting Saudi Arabia those quick switches that open a shooting lane.
Saudi are a marginal market favorite in the mid-range now, with Cape Verde just behind and the draw lows, and that offer-heavy book still looks ready to sell into any quick spike. At 0-0 on 8 minutes, it's basically priced for Saudi's next sustained spell to finally tilt the game their way.
19 minutes gone and it's still 0-0. And you can feel that debris of belief in Cape Verde. They're not just surviving, they're willing to take a touch and play. The danger is that bravery has to come with clean decisions because one loose pass and Saudi Arabia are straight into a shooting lane.
Saudi Arabia are still a slight market favorite in the mid-range, with Cape Verde and the draw both sitting just a touch lower. And that heavy sell-side depth suggests any jump gets capped quickly. At 0-0 on 9 minutes, it's still priced for Saudi to turn the next clean attacking spell into the first real edge.
18 minutes and it stays 0-0, but Saudi Arabia have just had a real sight of it. Salem Al-Dosari's left-footed effort from the left side of the box is blocked after Saad Abdulhamid whips in the cross. And now Kevin Peters foul hand Saudi a free kick on that left wing again. A dangerous little platform.
Saudi are still a tiny market favorite in the midst, with Cape Verde and the draw just a step behind, and that offer-heavy book suggests any uptick gets sold into quickly. At 0 on 9 minutes, it's still priced for Saudi pressure to be the next thing that creates separation. Saudi are still a slight favorite in the mid-range, with Cape Verde just behind and the draw lows, and the book remains very sell-side heavy, so any pop should get capped. At 0-0 on 2-0 minutes, that keeps the pricing pointed at Saudi's next. Sustained spell being the one that finally creates separation. Saudi are still only a slim favorite in the mid-range with Cape Verde and the draw basically alongside, and the book is massively offer stacked, so any little drift should get met by sellers. At 0-0 on 2-0 minutes is still priced for Saudis. Next sustained spell to be the one that finally creates separation.
20 minutes gone and it's still 0-0, but Saudi Arabia's best moments are coming when they switch it quickly and force Cape Verde to shuffle across the box. If that far side pass is released a beat earlier, those last-ditch blocks might not get there.
Saudi are still a slight favorite in the mid-range, with Cape Verde in the draw basically level behind, and the book is extremely sell-heavy, so any rally looks capped. At 0-0 on 2-1 minutes, that keeps the market leaning to Saudi to land a first real punch and finally separate.
22 minutes in and it's still 0-0, but you can see the referee's happy to wave away a bit up off the ball contact. After those early yellows, both Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia have to be smart. Now keep the edge, but don't let it tip into a needless second booking.
Pricing is still basically a three-way split in the low to mids, with Saudi Arabia only a slight favorite and a very sell-heavy book, likely to cap any quick move. At 0-0 on 2 minutes, that keeps the market leaning to Saudi to turn the next sustained spell into the first real edge.
22 minutes gone, it's still 0-0, and Cape Verde are seeing plenty of the ball in nice little spells. But the moment they reach the edge of the final third, the tempo drops and it gets recycled. What they need is a quicker 1-2 and an earlier ball flashed across the 6-yard line. 22 minutes gone and it's still 0-0, and Cape Verde are stroking it around in some really tidy spells. But the moment they hit that final third line, it slows down and goes backwards. Someone's got to punch a quicker combination and whip that early ball across the face.
Saudi Arabia are still only a slight favorite in the high range, with Cape Verde and the draw both sitting in the lows, and the book looks heavily offer stacked, so any jump should meet sellers. At 0-0 on 2 minutes, it's still priced for Saudi to make the next sustained attacking spell count. Saudi still hold a slim edge in the mids, while Cape Verde and the draw sit around the lows. And that lopsided sell-side depth suggests any sudden spike gets offered back quickly. At 0-0 on 2-3 minutes, the market's basically waiting for Saudi's next clean attacking spell to finally create separation.
23 minutes gone, it's still 0-0, and Cape Verde are keeping it nicely in spells, but the move keeps dying right on the edge of the final third. They've got to turn that possession into action. Quicker 1-2s and an earlier ball driven across the 6 when the runners are arriving.
Saudi Arabia still hold a slim edge in the mid-range, with Cape Verde and the draw cluster just behind, and the book is massively offer stacked, so any spike should get sold into. At 0-0 on 2-3 minutes, that pricing says the market's still waiting on Saudi to land the first real punch.
24 minutes in and it's still 0-0, but we've had a real moment at the other end. Willie Semedo's left-footed drive is pushed away low by Mohamed Alouays, and it ends with a Cape Verde corner. Now we've got a drinks break, and Saudi Arabia will be glad to reset after that warning.
Saudi Arabia still shaded in the mid-range, with Cape Verde and the draw close behind, and the book is overwhelmingly offer stacked, so any quick rally should get capped. At 0-0 on 4 minutes, that keeps the market leaning to Saudi to turn the next sustained spell into the first real edge. Saudi still sit as a narrow favorite in the mid-range, with Cape Verde and the draw tightly packed behind, and the book remains heavily offer stacked, so any uptick looks capped. At 0-0 on 5 minutes, that pricing keeps the edge with Saudi to find the first breakthrough if their pressure builds again.
25 minutes gone and it's still 0-0, but Cape Verde are finding those wide pockets and getting right to the byline. The next step is ruthless decision-making, cut it back hard across the 6 for the late runners, and if they win corners, the delivery has to beat the first man.
Saudi Arabia still hold a narrow edge in the mid-range, with Cape Verde and the draw basically level behind, and the book is so sell-stacked that any quick move should get capped. At 0-0 on 5 minutes, that keeps the market leaning to Saudi to manufacture the first breakthrough. Saudi Arabia are still a narrow favorite in the mid-range with Cape Verde and the draw close behind, and the book is overwhelmingly overstacked, so any quick swing should get sold into. At 0-0 on 26 minutes, that keeps the market leaning to Saudi to find the first breakthrough if they can sustain pressure.
26 minutes gone and it's still 0-0, but the set piece quality has to rise fast. Too many deliveries are dying on the first defender. With both teams carrying aerial threats, one clean corner or free kick could finally create the first proper scramble in the box. 26 minutes gone, it's still 0-0, and with the yellow each already on the board, the referee's next couple of calls are going to set the tone. One late lunge or a bit of off-the-ball nonsense, and you risk turning this into free kicks and stoppages instead of rhythm. 26 minutes gone, and it's still 0-0. And that drinks break is a real chance to reset the thinking. The energy's been fine, but the final pass and the first touch in the box have just been a fraction. Loose tidy that up, and this can swing quickly. We're back underway at 27 minutes, and it's still 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia after that drinks break. The clearest openings so far have come from quick, wide service and that one big save from Aloui. Both teams just need a cleaner first touch in the box. Back underway at 27 minutes, and it's still 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia, but you can feel both sides are winning it back and getting bodies forward. The problem is that last pass. Too many moves fizzle at the edge of the box when one cleaner combination could open it up. We're back underway at 27 minutes, and it's still 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia after the drinks break. The energy to win it back is there, but that final ball into the box has been a touch loose, one sharper pass, and we could finally see a clear chance.
Saudi's still shaded around the mid-mark with Cape Verde and the draw close behind, and the order book remains heavily stacked on the sell side, so any pot looks capped. At 0-0 nearing the half hour, that pricing keeps the edge with Saudi to nick the first breakthrough.
28 minutes, still 0-0, and Nasser Al-Dosari gives away the foul. Willie Samito wins, Cape Verde a free kick in the attacking half. That's a cheap one to concede, and it hands Cape Verde a chance to finally put a quality ball into the box and ask questions. 28 minutes gone, still 0-0. And it really is that final back quality letting both teams down after they win it back and surge forwards. Saudi Arabia look happy to squeeze Cape Verde's build-up and dare them to go long, trusting their center-backs to win the first contact.
Saudi Arabia still sit as a narrow favorite in the mid-range with Cape Verde and the draw clustered just behind. And the book remains heavily stacked with sellers, so any jump should meet supply. At 0-0 on 28 minutes, that keeps the market leaning to Saudi to turn the next clean spell into the first breakthrough.
29 minutes in, it's still 0-0, and you can see Saudi Arabia's plan. They jump the moment Cape Verde try to play through the deeper midfield and basically dare them to go long. It's a big call because if those center backs don't win first contact, Cape Verde are straight under second balls in dangerous areas.
Saudi Arabia remain a narrow favorite in the mid-range with Cape Verde in the draw basically level behind, and a very seller-heavy book still likely to cap any sudden repricing. At 0-9 minutes, that keeps the market leaning to Saudi to turn the next sustained press into the first goal.
Half an hour gone and it's still 0-0, but Saudi Arabia have a worry here, with the defender down again after needing ice earlier. If he can't shake it off, that high squeeze on Cape Verde's build-up suddenly becomes a lot harder to sustain. Half an hour gone and it's still 0-0, and you can sense Cape Verde haven't forgotten that trip from behind that killed their break. In a game this scrappy, the referee's next couple whistles could decide whether we get flow or another 10 minutes of stop-start free kicks.
Saudi are still only a narrow favorite in the mid-range with the draw and Cape Verde just a step behind. And that huge sell-side depth suggests any sudden rally gets offered back quickly. At 0-30 minutes, the market's basically saying one Saudi breakthrough is still the cleanest path to separation.
Half an hour played, still 0-0, and Saudi Arabia have a real concern here with Hassan Al-Tantidi down as the stretcher comes on. If he can't continue that aggressive squeeze on Cape Verde's build-up, may have to drop a few yards, especially against those long balls. 31 minutes, and it's still 0-0, but Saudi Arabia have a real problem here with Hassan Al-Tantidi down and the stretcher coming on. If he can't continue that high line and squeeze on Cape Verde's, build-up suddenly looks a lot harder to hold together.
Prices are basically unchanged. Saudi's still a narrow favorite in the mids with the draw, and Cape Verde just a touch behind, and the book remains heavily stacked with sellers to cap any spike. At 0-0 on 31 minutes with that Saudi defender down, the market's hesitating to push Saudi out until we see how that reshuffle affects their press.
31 minutes gone, and it's still 0-0, but all eyes are on that Saudi Arabia defender receiving treatment with the stretcher involved. If he can't carry on, it's not just a substitution. It changes how brave they can be with that high squeeze.
Saudi still barely lead in the mid-range with a draw and Cape Verde right on their shoulder. And the book is still massively sell-stacked, so any jump should get met with supply. At 0-0 on 32 minutes, that fits a market, waiting to see if this Saudi defensive issue blunts their press before backing them harder.
32 minutes, still 0-0. And Saudi Arabia look like they're about to be forced into a defensive change with Hassan Al-Tantidi in real discomfort as the stretcher comes on. If he can't continue, that back line may have to drop a step and protect whoever comes in. 33 minutes, still 0-0, and it's a forced change for Saudi Arabia. Ali Lajami comes on for the injured Hassan Al-Tambakti after that long stop. That's a big interruption for their back line. You wonder how quickly Lajami can settle into the defensive rhythm.
Saudi still hold the slimmest edge in the mid-range, with Cape Verde and the draw basically level and a very seller-heavy book likely to cap any quick swing. At 0-0, with that Saudi defender about to be forced off the markets, telling you the next few minutes could tilt toward Cape Verde's first real opening. The market's still basically a freeway split in the mid-range, and the book is overwhelmingly sell-stacked, so any quick swing should get offered back. At 0-0 on 32 minutes with Saudi's defender in trouble, that hesitation keeps a draw, and Cape Verde very live if the reshuffle disrupts their press. We're still looking at a near three-way split in the low to mid-range with Saudi only a hair in front and heavy sell depth sitting above all three outcomes to cap any rally. At 0-0 in the 3-4 TH after that forced defensive change, the market's basically waiting for proof Saudi can still control the next spell. We're still in a near three-way split around the mid-range, and the book is massively offer stacked across all outcomes, so any little price pop is likely to get sold back quickly. At 0-0 on 3-4 minutes, that screams next. Clear chance matters and the draw stays very live while Saudis settle that reshuffled backline. It's still a dead even three-way market in the low to mid-range, and that massive sell side depth above everything is basically capping any move. At 0-0 in the 3-4 TH, it says the crowd's waiting for one clean chance to finally separate this.
34 minutes, still 0-0, and Saudi Arabia have had to reshuffle a center back with Ali Lajimi thrown in after that injury stoppage. Those first few defensive actions are huge now. Cape Verde will want to test the new spacing with early balls into the channels and a real fight for second balls.
It's still basically a three-way coin flip around the mid-mark, and the order book is overwhelmingly seller stacked, so any little drift is likely to get offered back fast. At 0s on 3-5 minutes, that keeps the draw very much in play, while Saudi try to settle after that forced center back change.
31 minutes, still 0-0, and Cape Verde keep funneling it down. Willie Semedo's flank. He's getting into the right pockets, but that last pass into the number 10 has just been a touch loose. Clean that up and they've got a real opening. 34 minutes and Cape Verde finally pull the trigger. Jamiro Montero's left-footed effort from the left side of the box is blocked after Willie Semedo set it up. Then Samido gives away the foul straight after, and Saudi Arabia will be happy to slow it down and reset in their own half at 0-0.
It's still a dead even three-way market around the mid-mark, and the book is heavily stacked with sell orders, so any breakout in price should get capped quickly. At 0-0 on 3-6 minutes, that keeps the draw feeling sticky, unless someone lands the first clean shot on target.
36 minutes, still 0-0, and there's a shout for bar after a collision in the Saudi box, but it looks like on his shoulder-to-shoulder as they compete for the ball. In a game this tight, the referee's next decision is going to set the temperature for the rest of the half. 36 minutes, still 0-0, and that forced change as Saudi Arabia with a new center-back pairing in the middle. Cape Verde have to be smart here, get into the channels early and make Ali Lajami and his partners sort out their distances under pressure. 37 minutes, still 0-0, and it's getting niggly. Now Jamiro Montero clips one, then Salem Al-Dosari answers back with a foul of his own. Cape Verde have a free kick on the right wing, a real chance to swing it into a dangerous area and ask questions of that reshuffled Saudi back line.
We're still pricing a three-way split in the low to mid-range with a draw a slight shade ahead and a big wall of sell orders likely to cap any sudden move. At 0-0 on 3-7 minutes, that tells you the market expects this to stay tight into the break unless that Cape Verde set piece finally bites. The market's basically frozen in a three-way split with the draw a hair in front, and the book is still stacked with sellers, so any little pop should get met quickly. At 0-0 on 8 minutes, that pricing says the first real chance before halftime could finally break the stalemate.
38 minutes, still 0-0, and it's been a really broken first half with that injury stoppage and a run of low fouls, killing any flow. Cape Verde have had moments down Willie Cemeto's side, but the final ball into Montero just hasn't been sharp enough to create a clean look.
Prices are still basically a three-way split in the low to mid-range, and the order book remains heavily offer stacked, so any quick uptick should get sold into. At 0-0 on 8 minutes, that keeps the draw feeling stubborn unless Cape Verde finally make that right wing set piece count.
37 minutes, still 0-0, and Mohamed Kano clips Deroy Duarte. Cape Verde get the free kick in their own defensive half. It's another stoppage in a half that just can't find rhythm, and Saudi Arabia are walking a tight line with these little late challenges.
We're still sitting in that near three-way split in the low to mids with Cape Verde and the draw marginally ahead of Saudi and a huge wall of sell interest overhead, keeping a lid on any move. At 0-0 on 8 minutes, that pricing says this is still set up for a cagey run to halftime unless Cape Verde finally land a clean delivery from a dead ball. Cape Verde and the draw are still marginally ahead in the mid-range, with Saudi a touch lower, and that huge sell-side overhang suggests any spike gets capped quickly. At 0-0 on 9 minutes, it keeps the draw looking sticky, heading toward halftime unless someone finally creates a clear-cut chance.
Corner for Cape Verde on 3-8 and at 3-9. J.O. Paulo Reyes in the middle, but the header is blocked in a crowded box, still 0-0. That's exactly the kind of set-piece moment don't want to keep forcing against Saudi Arabia's reshuffled center-back pairing.
We're still basically in a three-way split in the low to mids with the draw and Cape Verde just shading it while Saudi sit a touch lower. And that heavy sell-side overhang is still capping any move. At 0-0 near 4-0 minutes, the market's saying this stays tight into halftime unless Cape Verde set pieces finally land. We're still looking at a near three-way split in the low to mid-range with the draw just edging it and a huge sell-side overhang still capping any breakout. At 0-0 approaching halftime, that pricing keeps the stalemate feeling sticky unless Cape Verde finally turn a set piece into a clean chance.
41 minutes, still 0-0, and it's been one of those stop-start halves where the referees had to step in and lay down the law. After that wrong restart admission, you can feel him warning players off the crowding because in a game this tight, the next flashpoint could swing it. 41 minutes, still 0-0. Essa Al-Dosari gives away the foul. Cape Verde win a free kick on the right wing. This is exactly the kind of delivery they've been leading on. Another chance to drop it into that crowded area and test Saudi Arabia's reshuffled center backs.
The market's still basically a three-way split in the low to mids, with the draw a slight favorite, and that huge sell side overhang is still sitting on top of any rally. At 0-0 in the 401 state, it screams one moment decides it, but right now the stalemate is priced to hold into the break.
42 minutes, still 0-0, and the referee's becoming the main character here. Players are crowding him after those tight restart and contact calls. One more late step or a bit of dissent, and you feel a yellow card is coming, just to calm this down before halftime.
We're still sitting in a near three-way split in the low to mid range, with a draw, a slight lean, and a massive sell overhang likely to cap any sudden rally. At 0-0 in the 4-2 ND, that keeps the halftime stalemate as the market's base case unless a set piece finally breaks it.
42 minutes, still 0-0, and Cape Verde are putting the ball into the right zones from these set pieces. But when that delivery drops, there's just not enough movement inside the 6-yard box. Someone has to gamble on the second ball if they want to break through before the break. 42 minutes, still 0-0, and Cape Verde have to show a bit more hunger on those second balls in the box. The deliveries are landing in the right areas, but when it drops loose around the 6-yard line, nobody's attacking it with real conviction.
The draw is still the slight market favorite in the high range, with Cape Verde just behind and Saudi a touch lower, and that heavy sell side overhang is still capping any rally. At 0-0 in the 4-2 ND, the pricing keeps pointing to a cagey run into halftime unless one of these set pieces finally lands.
42 minutes and Cape Verde have a go. Willie Samido lets fly from outside the box, but he drags it wide to the left and it stays 0-0. That's the right idea, though. When the set pieces aren't dropping kindly, sometimes you need someone to take responsibility from range.
The draw is still the narrow favorite in the high range, with Cape Verde just behind and Saudi a touch lower, and that heavy sell side overhang suggests any rally gets capped fast. At 0-0 in the 4th minute, the market's basically betting this stays locked through halftime unless a set piece finally breaks it. The draw still leads in the high range, with Cape Verde close behind and Saudi just under 3-0, and that massive sell side overhang is still sitting on top of any move. With it 0-0 at 4 minutes, the market's basically pricing the stalemate to survive to halftime unless someone finally lands a clean set piece chance. The draw still sits as a slim favorite around the high mark, with Cape Verde close behind and Saudi just under 3-0, and that big sell side overhang is still capping any pop. With it 0-0. At 4 minutes, the market's leaning to a quiet finish to the half, unless Cape Verde finally make one of these right side deliveries count.
Still 0-0 at 4 minutes, and that last free kick has Cape Verde furious. There's a real feeling the contact on the foot could have brought a booking. And again, this stop-start, the referee's next decision on a late challenge might set the temperature for the entire second half. Still 0-0 at 4 minutes, and Cape Verde are absolutely livid that the late step only brings a free kick and no booking. In a half already, chopped up by fouls. The referee's next call on one of those trailing legs could decide whether this stays controlled or boils over before the break.
The draw is still the narrow favorite, just under 4-0, with Cape Verde in the mids and Saudi just under 3-0, and that massive sell side overhang is still sitting on top of any rally. At 0-0 in the 4-4 teach, the market's basically pricing this to crawl into halftime unless a set piece finally produces a clean look.
45 minutes and it's another stoppage. Ryan Mendes clips Abdullah Al-Kabi and Saudi Arabia win the free kick deep in their own half. Still 0-0. That's exactly the kind of cheap foul that's kept this first half so fragmented and tense, right on the whistle. We're into 4-5-1 and it's still 0-0, but Cape Verde have looked most dangerous when they stretch it wide and then cut it back into that little pocket on the edge of the box. If they keep finding that central receiver between Saudi Arabia's lines, the final pass and finish might finally click after the break. 45-1, and it's still 0-0, but Cape Verde has had their best moments when they get it wide and pull it back into that pocket at the top of the box. One attacker in particular has looked the sharpest, arriving onto those cutbacks, just needs a cleaner finish to turn promise into a breakthrough. 45-1, and it's still 0-0, and Cape Verde's best openings have come from going wide and cutting it back into that space just outside the box. They're fighting the right receiver between Saudi Arabia's lines, but the final strike has been snatched and dragged off target. 45 minutes, and it's a foul by Brian Mendes for Cape Verde, and Saudi Arabia get the free kick as we sit at 0-0 in first half stoppage time. With 6 minutes added, that's another needless stoppage that just keeps his half chopped up, right on the break of the break.
The draw is still the top price around 4-0 with Cape Verde in the lows and Saudi just under that. And the books still stacked with heavy sell side liquidity that should cap any sudden swing. At 0-0 in first half stoppage time, that keeps the market leaning to a level score at the break.
We're at 4-5-1, still 0-0, and that central pocket is exactly where Cape Verde can finally get a grip on this game. If they can plant a proper holder between Saudi Arabia's lines, receive on the half turn, and play forward early, the whole attack suddenly has a heartbeat. We're at 4-5-2, and it's still 0-0, and it really has been a stop-start half with neither Cape Verde nor Saudi Arabia finding any rhythm. That late, Saudi effort at least made the keeper work, and you could hear the stadium wake up the moment there was finally something to react to. 45-2, and it's still 0-0, and it has been a fractured stop-start first half. But Saudi Arabia have finally forced the goalkeeper into a routine save in his added time spell, and you can feel him trying to squeeze one last moment before the whistle. 45-2, and still 0-0, but Saudi Arabia finally make Bozina work. Mohamed Kano rises in the middle and powers the header straight at him, and the keeper holds it right up top. That's a real warning from a set-piece situation. Al-Amr's delivery giving Kano a clean look in the box.
The draw still leads around the low range with Cape Verde and Saudi clustered in the lows, and that big sell side stack is still sitting on top of any breakout. With it 0-0. At 4-5-2, the market's basically pricing this to reach halftime level unless Saudi turn that set-piece warning into a real finish. The draw still tops the board in the low range, with Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia both sitting in the lows, and that heavy sell side still capping any late swing. At 4-5-3 and 0-0, the market's basically calling for the whistle to arrive level unless Saudi make one more set piece count.
We're deep into first half stoppage time at 4-5-3, and it's still 0-0, but you can sense the nickel creeping in, little bumps, little appeals, and the referee waving, play on. The next couple of whistles or lack of them will decide whether this stays controlled or turns into a second half scrap. We're at 4-5-4, and it's still 0-0, but Bosinia's name is getting louder off the pitch as well as on it after that Spain performance. Even that routine stoppage time take from Kano's header keeps him in the shop window safe hands, no drama, just job done.
Pricing's basically unchanged. The draw still leads in the low range, with both teams clustered around the highs, and that huge sell side stack is still sitting overhead. At 4-5-4 and 0-0, the market's telling you the break arrives level, unless Saudi nick one from a final set piece.
45-4, and it's still 0-0. Saudi Arabia win the free kick on the left through Nasser Al-Dosari, and when it breaks to Saad Abdulhamid from range, Cape Verde get a crucial block in. That's the danger. Late on second, balls all set plays, and you gotta be first to the shot.
The draw still, the market's top line in the low range, with Cape Verde and Saudi both sitting around the highs to lows. And that huge sell side overhang is still capping any breakout. At 4-5-4 and 0-0, it's basically pricing the halftime whistle to land level unless Saudi finally convert one of these set piece moments. The draw is still the clear market favorite in the low range with Cape Verde and Saudi clustered in the lows and a big wall of sell liquidity still sitting overhead. At 455 and still 0-0, that pricing says we're headed for a level halftime unless Saudi turn this late. Set piece pressure into a finish.
We're at 455 and it's still 0-0, but Saudi Arabia had definitely upped the urgency in this added time spell, forcing Cape Verde into a couple of big defensive moments. Cape Verde just can't afford any casual touches in possession here because the second ball is dropping to Saudi shorts on the edge. 40-6 and it's still 0-0, and you can feel the temperature rising in these last seconds of the half. After those late free kicks and the appeals being waved away, the referee's next decision is massive. Either he calms it down fast or this gets edgy after the break. And that is halftime. Cape Verde 0, Saudi Arabia 0 after a really stop-start first half. The clearest warning sign came right at the end with Tano's header forcing Vosina into a solid save, and you feel set pieces could be the key after the break.
At the break, the draw is still the top prize in the low range with both Cape Verde and Saudi sitting just under 3-0, and that heavy sell side depth is still capping any sharp repricing. With it, 0-0. At halftime, the market's basically saying the second half stays tight unless Saudi set pieces finally cash in.
Halftime here, Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia, and that scoreline suits Cape Verde far more in the bigger picture as things stand. Saudi Arabia look like the team will have to take the handbrake off after the break, but they've got to keep it controlled. Those late set piece moments were their clearest route.
At halftime, the draw is still the clear favorite in the low range, with Cape Verde and Saudi both just under 3-0, and that heavy sell side depth is still sitting overhead. With it, 0-0. The market's basically saying one clean Saudi set piece after the break could be the first real trigger for a repricing. At halftime, the draw is still the market leader in the low range, with Cape Verde and Saudi both sitting just under 3-0 and a big sell side cap still overhead. With it 0-0, that pricing says the second half stays cagey unless Saudi finally turn those set pieces into the opener.
Halftime here, Cape Verde 0, Saudi Arabia 0, but it finally loosened up right before the whistle, and you can hear the crowd lift with those late moments. That Cano header and the follow-up pressure all set plays feels like a real hint of where the second half might be decided. Halftime at 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia, and Saudi's brightest flashes have been when they can get a winger isolated and run straight at the fullback. If they can create more of those 1v1 lanes after the break, it's the cleanest way to finally pull Cape Verde out of their comfort zone.
At halftime, it's still a draw-led book in the low range with Cape Verde and Saudi both hovering around 3-0, and a big wall of sell liquidity still capping any breakout. With it, 0-0. The market's basically waiting for Saudi to finally turn that set-piece pressure into the opener.
Halftime here, Cape Verde 0, Saudi Arabia 0, and it's been tight with very few clean looks. The one real late scare was that Cabo header straight at Vosina, and it underlines how set pieces might be the clearest route to a breakthrough after the break.
At halftime, the draw still leads in the low range, with Cape Verde and Saudi both sitting around 3-0, so the market's basically holding a tight, low-conviction split. With it, 0-0. That keeps the second half price for one moment of quality to tilt it. Most likely Saudi pushing the tempo first.
Halftime at 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia after 6 minutes of added time. The sharpest moment came late when Cano's header was kept out by Vosina, and it just hints that set pieces and second balls could decide this one after the break.
At halftime, the draw remains the market's top line in the low range with Cape Verde near 3-0 and Saudi just under that. So pricing is basically steady into the break. With it still 0-0, that keeps the second half set up for Saudi pressure to be the first real catalyst. At halftime, the draw is still the market's top call around the low S, with Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia both sitting just under a third, and no real repricing despite chunky two-way flow. with it. 0-0. That keeps the second half price for a tight grind, unless Saudi finally land the opener.
Halftime here, Cape Verde 0, Saudi Arabia 0 after that long added time spell. The clearest opening came from a set piece with Cano's header, forcing Vozina into a steady save, and it feels like dead balls and second balls are still the best route to a breakthrough. Halftime at 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia, and it's been a game of fine margins with very little cleaning the boxes. The one real warning sign was that late Saudi set-piece header forcing Vozina into action. Dead ball still looked like the clearest route to a first goal. Halftime here, Cape Verde 0, Saudi Arabia 0, after that 6 minutes of added time. The one moment that really asked the question was Cano's late header, and Vozina answering it, set pieces. Still feel like the most reliable way. Either side finds the first goal. Halftime here, Cape Verde 0, Saudi Arabia 0 after that added time stretch. The one genuine chance right before the break was Saudi Arabia's Cano getting his head on it. Vozina stood firm. Set pieces still look like the cleanest route to a first goal. Halftime at 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia after that 6 minutes of added time. It's been cagey and low on clear chances, but that late Saudi header and save is a reminder one good dead ball moment could still swing it. Halftime at 0-0, Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia still locked together after that long added time spell. The clearest sighted goal was Saudi Arabia's late header that Vozina held, and it feels like one. Well-worked set piece could finally tilt this. Halftime at 0-0, Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia still can't find a clean opening after that added time stretch. The best look before the break came from Saudi Arabia's set-piece header that Vozina dealt with, and it keeps pointing to dead balls as the likeliest way to get the first goal. Halftime here at 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia after 6 minutes added on, and it's been a real arm wrestle with hardly any clear daylight in the boxes. That late Cano header, straight at Vozina, is the closest we've come. Set pieces still feel like the most reliable route to a first goal. Halftime at 0-0, Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia still can't be separated after that 6 minutes of added time. The clearest opening was that Cano header, Vozina held it, and it feels like the next goal might come from a single, well-timed set piece.
The book's still basically frozen at halftime. The draw leads in the low range, with Cape Verde and Saudi both just under a third, and that heavy sell side overhang is still capping any move. At 0-0, it's telling you the second half stays tight unless Saudi finally turn one of those set pieces into the opener.
Still goalless at halftime. Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia, and it's been tight with very little in the boxes. One little clue for Cape Verde is Semedo getting isolated down the line. If they can keep finding him wide, those early shots from range might be their best way to test the keeper. Halftime at 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia, and it's still a game of tiny moments rather than flowing chances. That late Saudi set-piece header was the one real test, and it underlines how important restarts and clean first contacts will be after the break.
At halftime, the draw still tops the book in the low range, with Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia both sitting just under 3-0, so pricing is basically unchanged despite chunky flow. At 0-0, that keeps the second half framed as a tight grind unless Saudi finally nick one from a set piece.
Halftime in Houston, Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia, but that late Saudi header and Vozina save has definitely woken the place up. If the crowd keeps that edge into the second half, you feel one clean set-piece contact could finally spark the breakthrough. Halftime at 0-0, Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia still level after that added time spell. The clearest warning sign was Saudi Arabia getting a free header on the set piece, and Cape Verde will want that tighter marking on those dead ball deliveries after the break.
The draw still prizes a front runner in the low range, with Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia both sitting around 3-0, and a big sell side overhang keeping the book penned at halftime. At 0-0, that screams a cagey restart, unless Saudi finally convert one of those set piece looks.
Halftime at 0-0, Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia still locked together after that long added time spell. The clearest warning was Saudi Arabia getting a free header late on, so Cape Verde's set-piece marking has to be sharper when we come back out. Halftime at 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia after that long added time spell. Chances have been scarce, and it still feels like the second half could hinge on who's cleaner on first contact, from free kicks and corners. Halftime here, Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia after that long added time spell, and it's still been a game of half chances rather than clear openings. The one red alarm bell was Saudi Arabia getting that header on target late on, so Cape Verde will want to be tighter on the first contact from dead balls. Halftime, Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia after that 6 minutes of added time, and it's still finally balanced with very little separating them. The one clear reminder before the break was Wazinha having to be sharp to a Saudi header, so set-piece organization stays absolutely key. Halftime at 0-0, Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia still deadlocked after that long added time spell. The one real moment of danger was Wazinha having to deal with that Saudi header, so those set-piece matchups feel like they'll decide who lands the first punch after the break. Halftime here at 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia after that long added time spell. The one clear chance right before the break was Cano's header that Wazinha held, and it just underlines how crucial those set-piece matchups will be when we restart. Halftime in Houston, and it's still 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia after that long added time spell. The clearest opening before the whistle was that Saudi header. Wazinha had to hold, so dead ball marking and first contact feel absolutely decisive after the break. Halftime at 0, Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia still level after that long added time spell. The one real moment of quality was Wazinha holding Cano's header, and it's a reminder that set pieces are where this game's been closest to turning. Halftime, Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia after that 6 minutes of added time, and it's still a tight KG1. The clearest sign of danger was Saudi Arabia getting a header on target late on, so those dead ball matchups feel massive when we restart. Halftime here, Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia after that long added time spell, and it's still finely poised. The one real edge before the whistle was Saudi Arabia forcing Wazinha into that sharp save from a header. So set-piece marking feels like the detail that could swing it. Halftime at 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia after that added time stretch. The one real flash before the whistle was Wazinha having to be solid on the Saudi header. So those set-piece duels feel like the clearest route to a breakthrough after the restart. Halftime at 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia after that 6 minutes of added time. The clearest warning sign was Wazinha having to be right on it to hold that Saudi header. So set-piece marking still looks like the biggest detail. Halftime here, Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia after that 6 minutes of added time, and it's still on a knife edge with very little between them. The clearest moment was Cano's header forcing Wazinha into a clean take, so those set-piece duels look like the best route to the first goal. Halftime at 0-0 Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia going level after that long added time spell. The last real action was Saudi Arabia getting bodies around the box for that header Wazinha had to deal with, so restarts and marking remain the clearest route to a first goal. Halftime at 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia after that extended stoppage time. The closest either side came was that Saudi header. Wazinha gathered cleanly, and it feels like the next goal might still come from a set-piece duel rather than open play. Halftime in Houston, and it's still 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia after that 6 minutes of added time. The best look we saw was Saudi Arabia's late header that Wazinha handled cleanly, so that aerial battle on restarts is still the clearest route to the first goal. Halftime in Houston, Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia after that 6 minutes of added time. The only real warning sign was Saudi Arabia getting a clean header on target late on, so both coaches will be drilling those set-piece matchups before we restart. Halftime at 0-0. Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia can't be split after that 6 minutes of added time. The clearest threat was still Saudi Arabia's header that Bozina had to take cleanly, so those dead ball deliveries and marking battles feel like the key detail after the restart. Halftime, Cape Verde 0-0, Saudi Arabia after that added time stretch, and it's still finally balanced. The one moment that really asked the question was Bozina having to be alert to claim Cano's header, so those set-piece matchups are still screaming decider for the second half. Halftime at 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia after that 6 minutes of added time, and it's still a tight, cagey one. The clearest opening was that Saudi header Bozina had to hold, so those set-piece matchups feel like the most likely spark after the restart. Halftime at 0-0, Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia still locked together after that 6 minutes of added time. The clearest chance was Saudi Arabia's header that Bozina held cleanly, so both benches will be talking about set-piece marking before we go again. Right on halftime, Saudi Arabia make a change. Musab Al-Jouair's on for Abdullah Al-Khaibari with it. Still 0-0 against Cape Verde. That feels like a midfield tweak to get a bit more control and cleaner ball progression after the break in a game that's been decided by 5 margins. Halftime in Houston, and it's still 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia. That late Saudi change with Al-Jouair coming on feels like a nudge for sharper midfield circulation because clear chances have been at a premium so far. Second half underway at 0-0, and Saudi Arabia had already shown their hand with Musab Al-Jouair on for Abdullah Al-Khaibari. If that's a push to be braver in midfield, the tell will be whether Al-Jouair starts receiving on the half turn and moving it forward quicker in these opening minutes. Second half underway at 0-0, and Saudi Arabia wastes no time, straight into an early corner after bringing on Musab Al-Jouair at the break. That's a clear signal they want cleaner midfield progression and to make set pieces count as the quickest route to the first goal. We're back underway at 4-6 minutes, and it's still 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia, but Saudi Arabia have come out with intent. An early corner straight after the restart. With Musab Al-Jouair on in midfield, you can sense they want quicker progression to finally force that first breakthrough. Corner to Saudi Arabia at 4-6 minutes. J.R. Paulo forced to concede it, and we're still locked at 0-0. After that late first half header, you can feel Saudi leaning into set pieces again here. Cape Verde have to win that first contact in the 6-yard box. Still 0-0 at 4-7 minutes, and Saudi Arabia have come out of the blocks with that early corner plus the halftime midfield switch. It's a clear hint they want quicker ball circulation and to make a set piece finally tilt this game their way. "48 minutes, still 0-0, and Saudi Arabia have definitely upped the urgency since the restart with that midfield change and an immediate spell of set-piece pressure. An outbreak and free header a moment ago is the warning sign for Cape Verde. Those 60-box matchups are starting to creak. 48 minutes, still 0-0, and that little release dribble down the line is exactly how Cape Verde can take the sting out of Saudi Arabia's early second half surge. If they keep wriggling free like that, it stops those corners and second balls, turning into wave after wave of pressure. 48 minutes, still 0-0, and Cape Verde win the free kick as Sultan Mandash clips Willie Samito in the defensive half. And Cape Verde nearly turned that into something. Jamiro Montero's right foot effort from the middle is on target, but the Saudi keeper stands tall and smothers it.
The draw still tops the book in the low range, with both sides sitting around 3-0 and a big sell side overhang keeping any breakout capped. At 0-0 in the 490H, that pricing says we're still waiting on a Saudi set piece or sustained spell to finally force the first real shift. The draw still leads in the low range, with Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia both hovering around 3-0, and the book looks pinned with heavy sell liquidity overhead rather than any real repricing. At 0-0 in the 490H, that keeps this framed as a grind where one clean Saudi spell could finally be the catalyst.
Still 0-0 at 5 minutes, and Jamiro Montero is right at the heart of Cape Verde's best moments. He's already tested the keeper from close range since the restart. With his big game background, they'll want him arriving in those pockets again, but the final touch has to be cleaner.
The draw still leads in the low range with Cape Verde, lows and Saudi highs. So the market's basically pinned with no real repricing yet. At 0-0 minutes, that keeps the game priced for one Saudi breakthrough to be the first real catalyst.
Still 0-0 at 5 minutes, but Cape Verde are starting this half with a bit more zip on the ball, moving it quicker and finding those central links to play through. Pressure. That's exactly how you turn a scrappy stalemate into one clean chance in the box. 50 minutes still, 0-0, and Kevin Pina has a goal for Cape Verde, left-footed from outside the box, but he can't keep it on target. That's Cape Verde showing they're willing to shoot early rather than overplay it, trying to test Saudi Arabia from range. Still 0-0 at 5 minutes, but Cape Verde are starting to play with more purpose after the break, getting a couple of efforts away through Montero and Kevin Pina. If they keep moving it quicker through the middle, Saudi Arabia's back line is going to get tested by runners arriving late. It's Surabaya, it's 1 minute, and you can feel the second half stretching out now. Cape Verde are playing with more zip, and they're not shy about pulling the trigger from range. Saudi Arabia have lifted the intensity too, and that next clean chance in the box could finally crack this stalemate.
The market still pinned the draw leads in the low range with Cape Verde around 3-0 and Saudi Arabia highs, and that heavy sell-side liquidity is capping any breakout. At 0-1 1 minute is still priced like one Saudi spell, or set piece could be the first real trigger. The book's still basically pinned at 5-2 minutes. Draw leads in the lows with Cape Verde around 3 year and Saudi just under that, and the sell side cap is still heavy. At 0-0, that pricing keeps leaning toward a stalemate unless Cape Verde's growing tempo finally turns into the opener.
Still 0-0 at 2 minutes, and Jamiro Montero feels like the man Cape Verde want on the end of the move when it finally opens up. He's already forced a save from close range, and that MLS big game know-how is all about staying calm when the ball drops in the box. Still 0-0 at 2 minutes, but Cape Verde have tightened that midfield up, packing the central lane, so there's always a short option, and Saudi Arabia can't just play through the middle. And when the gap doesn't open, you've seen Kevin Pina happy to set himself and hit it from range. Still 0-0 at 2 minutes, and Cape Verde have clearly come out sharper after the break, squeezing those central lanes, so there's always a quick little connector pass on. If Saudi Arabia can't play through the middle, it's almost daring Cape Verde to keep testing Alaouis from distance. Still 0-0 at 3 minutes, and Cape Verde's midfield is staying really compact, giving the man on the ball that quick little connector pass, while Saudi Arabia struggle to find room between the lines. And when the lane doesn't open, Cape Verde are happy to set it and shoot from range rather than force it.
The market's still stuck with the draw leading in the mid-range. Cape Verde around 3 and Saudi in the highs. And that big sell-side overhang is still capping any real move. At 0-0 In the 5-3 RD, it's still priced like this stays tight unless Cape Verde's sharper start finally turns into the opener.
Still 0-0 at 5 minutes, but Cape Verde are getting their best angles down that right side, now with the overlap showing and runners arriving on the outside. If that final pass finally sticks, that's a channel that can turn a half chance into a real look at goal. 53 minutes still 0-0, and it's a handball against Mohamed Kano for Saudi Arabia. So, Cape Verde get the free kick. In a game this tight, that's the kind of cheap concession that can hand over a dangerous delivery in a real first look at goal. 53 minutes and Ryan Mendes gets a left-footed strike away from the middle of the box for Cape Verde, but it's blocked before it can really test Al Owais. That's another sign. Cape Verde are getting bodies into those central pockets and pulling the trigger quickly in this second half. Still them.
The draw is still the clear frontrunner in the miss range with Cape Verde, lows, and Saudi misdrews, so the market's basically pinned despite all that overhead liquidity. At 0-0 in the 5-4 TH, it's still priced like Cape Verde's. Next clean chance is the one that finally forces a real shift.
Still 0-0 at 5 minutes, but Cape Verde are getting their best joy down that right-hand side, repeatedly isolating the fullback and driving into shooting lanes. As we creep toward the hour and legs start to go, that wide channel feels like the cleanest route to the first real opening.
The draw is still the market leader in the mid-range, while Cape Verde sit lows and Saudi Arabia mids with a big wall of sell liquidity overhead, keeping prices pinned. At 0-0 in the 5-5 teach, that says we're still in stalemate territory unless Cape Verde's next decent right side break finally produces the opener. The draw still leads in the mid-sir range with Cape Verde lows and Saudi mids, and the book looks capped by heavy sell liquidity rather than any fresh repricing. At 0-0 on 5 minutes, that keeps the market leading to a grind unless Cape Verde finally turn that right side pressure into the opener.
55 minutes, still 0-0 and Pico Lobis wins. Cape Verde a free kick deep in his own half after taking the contact. That's a chance to slow it down, get the back line up the pitch, and to reset the build rather than gifting Saudi Arabia another quick transition.
The draw is still the market's top outcome in the mid-sir range with Cape Verde, lows, and Saudi mids, so pricing hasn't really budged despite all that depth sitting overhead. At 0 in the 5-6 TH, they keeps it framed as a stalemate, unless Cape Verde finally turned that sharper second half spell into the opener.
Still 0-0 at 5-6 minutes, and that handball decision just adds a bit of edge to a game where nobody's given an inch. From here, it really can come down to one set-piece delivery, one lapse on a cheap foul, one clean header, and suddenly the whole match flips. 56 minutes, still 0-0, and it's a corner for Cape Verde after Saad Abdulhamid concedes it. Another set-piece moment where one clean first contact could finally produce that opening in a match this tight.
The draw is still the market's favorite in the mid-range, with Cape Verde lows and Saudi midges, and a huge sell-side overhang is basically pinning any move. At 0-0 in the 5-7 teach, the pricing keeps leaning toward this, staying tight unless Cape Verde finally land one from that right side pressure.
57 minutes, still 0-0, and you can feel how tense Saudi Arabia look every time Cape Verde step into that final third. Cape Verde have already shown they'll shoot early and win set pieces, so one tire clearance or one late challenge could decide this in a flash. 58 minutes, still 0-0, and you can sense Cape Verde stepping higher and trying to squeeze Saudi Arabia into mistakes in their own half. When those turnovers come, they're not overplaying it either. Kevin Venus already shown he'll set it to hit one from range to try and break the deadlock.
The draw still tops the board in the mid range with Cape Verde, lows, and Saudi mids, and that massive sell side overhang is still pinning any real repricing. At 0-0 on 5-8 minutes, the market's basically saying one Cape Verde set piece or right side break is the only thing that forces a shift. Prices are still pinned with the draw in the mid-range. Cape Verde lows and Saudi mids and a huge sell side overhang is still capping any breakout. At 0 on 8 minutes, it keeps screaming stalemate, unless Cape Verde finally cash in on one of these set pieces.
57 minutes and Leroy Duarte has a go from outside the box for Cape Verde, but he drags it high and wide to the right. Still, that's another sign they're happy to pull the trigger from range when the central lane won't open up. 59 minutes, still 0-0. And you can see Cape Verde's press has gone up a notch since the break, forcing Saudi Arabia into rush clearances and second balls. And when that middle channel won't open, they're not hesitating. Pina and Duarte have already shown they'll hit it early from range to find the first goal. 59 minutes, still 0-0, and Saudi Arabia, no one mistake could undo all their work if Cape Verde keep getting into that final third. With Cape Verde already shooting from range and winning set pieces, the next clearance and the next first contact in the box feel absolutely massive. We're at 60 minutes and it's still 0-0, but Cape Verde have clearly cranked the press up since the restart, making Saudi Arabia get rid of it early. With Duarte stepping higher as that central outlet, those second balls are dropping for Cape Verde, and it's keeping the pressure pinned in. At 60 minutes, it's still 0-0, and Cape Verde do look the more assertive side since the restart, stepping up to win it back higher. The key now is that decision after the turnover. If the lane's blocked, they're backing those early strikes from range to force a mistake or a rebound. We've hit 60 minutes at 0-0, and it does feel like Saudi Arabia need a tweak in that final third. More movement ahead of the ball, more bodies arriving in the box. Since halftime, Cape Verde have been the ones winning the second balls and turning those moments into shots and set pieces. We're just past 60 minutes and it's still 0-0, and you can feel Saudi Arabia running out of ideas in that final third as Cape Verde keeps squeezing the build-up. If there's a lever to pull now, it's fresh legs up top or a small shake tweak to get runners beyond the ball.
The draw is still the clear favorite, just under 5-0 with Cape Verde around 3-0 and Saudi Arabia lows. And that heavy sell side depth is still capping any real repricing. At 0-0 on 61 minutes, the market's basically daring someone to land an opener before it stops, leading stalemate.
61 minutes, still 0-0, and Cape Verde's double change is a clear signal they want to turn this spell into a breakthrough. With their press already forcing rush clearances, fresh legs could be the difference in winning that next second ball and getting a clean shot away.
The draws now basically a coin flip, just under 5 via.
61 minutes, still 0-0, and Cape Verde roll the dice with a double change. Nuno da Costa is on for Delon Livramento, and Helio Varela replaces Willie Semedo. That's fresh energy up top and out wide, trying to turn those second-hand shots and set pieces into the first real clear-cut chance. 61 minutes, still 0-0, and that aerial battle is starting to look like the whole game. Saudi Arabia want Cape Verde to go long and then scrap for the knockdowns. But with Cape Verde finding a higher central outlet and carrying it defenders, the next second ball could finally open the first clear chance.
The draw is now priced like a straight coin flip around 5-0, with both teams' win chances sitting in the mids and the books still showing heavy sell-side resistance overhead. At 0-0 in the 6-1 saying that keeps the pressure on Cape Verde's fresh legs to force the opener before the market fully locks into stalemate. The draw is holding around a coin flip with Cape Verde in the highs and Saudi Arabia lows, and that huge sell-side overhang is still capping any real breakout in pricing. At 0-0 on 62 minutes, the market's basically saying this stays tight unless Cape Verde's fresh legs finally nick the opener.
62 minutes, still 0-0, and it really is that stick or twist moment now. Cape Verde have already played their hand with Da Costa and Varela on. Saudi Arabia look like they need a change for creativity because Cape Verde's higher press is still forcing those rushed clearances and messy second balls.
The draw is now a clear market favorite, a touch above 5-0, while both teams sit in the mids. And that heavy sell-side liquidity still looks like it's capping any big swing. At 0-0 on 6, 2 minutes, the pricing is leaning harder into a stalemate unless Cape Verde's fresh legs finally force the breakthrough.
63 minutes, still 0-0, and Kevin Pina gives away the foul for Cape Verde. That's a little release foul for Saudi Arabia after Cape Verde's spell of winning second balls and snapping into those early shots from range since the restart.
The draw has firmed to just over half the book now with Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia both sitting in the midst, and there's still a big wall of sell liquidity overhead keeping things pinned. At 0-0, the 6-3 are deep, as the market leading into a cagey finish unless Cape Verde's pressure finally produces the opener. The draw has strengthened into the low range while both sides win. Chances are now sitting in the middas, and that heavy sell side overhang is still capping any breakout. At 0 on 6, 3 minutes, the market's basically pricing a tight finish unless Cape Verde's fresh legs finally force the opener.
63 minutes, still 0-0, and Kevin Pina concedes the foul for Cape Verde, handing Saudi Arabia a free kick in their own defensive hand. That's a precious breather for Saudi Arabia after Cape Verde's spell of snapping into second balls and keeping them under pressure since the restart.
The draw has firmed into the low range with both teams' win chances now in the mids and a big sell side wall still keeping any move capped. At 0-0 on 6, 3 minutes, that pricing is leaning toward this, staying locked unless Cape Verde's press finally forces the breakthrough. The draw is now the clear favorite in the low range, with both teams' win chances down around the mids and a big sell side wall, still capping any breakout. At 0-0 in the 6-4 TH, that's the market leaning into a scoreless finish unless someone finally lands the opener soon. The draw has pushed up into the mid-range.
66 minutes, still 0-0, and Saudi Arabia make the change. Mohammed Abu Al-Shamat is on for Salem Al-Dosari. That's a big call because Al-Dosari has been one of the few who can unlock a tight game, so Abu Al-Shamat has to bring fresh legs and cleaner final ball decisions.
The draw is now priced in the mids with both Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia down in the lows of the markets tightening around stalemate as the clock ticks. At 0-0 in the 6-6 TH, Saudi's change has to create a real chance suit or this pricing just keeps drifting toward a scoreless finish.
66 minutes, still 0-0, and you can see the referee's line now. The little nudges are getting waved on, but anything with real force is a whistle. In a tight game like this, both Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia have to be smart. One rashly, and you're handing over a cheap set piece. 66 minutes, still 0-0, and Saudi Arabia make another switch. Abdullah Al-Hamdan is on for Sultan Mandash. Straight after that, Saud Abdul Hamid gives away a foul, and Cape Verde earn a free kick deep in their own half to reset and push up again.
The draw is now the clear favorite in the mid-range with both Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia pushed down into the lows as the book leans into stalemate. At 0-0 on 6-6 minutes, those Saudi substitutions need to create a real chast, or the market just keeps drifting toward a scoreless finish.
66 minutes, still 0-0, and Saudi Arabia have rolled the dice with two changes. Abu Al-Shamat for Al-Dosari and Al-Hamdanan for Mandash. It's a clear attempt to shake off that passivity, but the immediate foul from Abdul Hamid just hands Cape Verde a chance to breathe and step up again. 67 minutes, still 0-0, and Bouzia comes up huge. He claws Abu Al-Shamat's right-footed effort away, up into the top left corner after the Juwayer assist. And Nasser Al-Dosari flies in late, gives away the free kick in the attacking half, and he's booked for it. Still 0-0 at 6-8 minutes, and Saudi Arabia have tried to jolt this game with Abu Al-Shamat and Al-Hamdan on. Abu Al-Shamat even forcing Vozina into that sharp save from the right. But that immediate yellow for Nasser Al-Dosari screams frustration, and now they've got to chase the winner without gifting Cape Verde cheap set pieces.
The draw is still the market anchor in the mid-range, with both Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia stuck around the lows and a big sell-side overhang keeping any breakout capped. At 0-0 on 6-8 minutes, it says Saudi's recent spark has to become a clear chance soon, or the stalemate price just keeps tightening.
Still 0-0 at 6-9 minutes, and Saudi Arabia's double change has definitely cranked up the urgency. Abu Al-Shamat has already tested Vozina from the right side of the box. But with Nasser Al-Dosari now on a yellow, they've got to press for a winner without diving into those cheap fouls that hand Cape Verde easy territory.
The draw is still doing the heavy lifting at roughly the mid-mark, with both win sides stuck in the lows and that big sell side overhang still capping any breakout. At 0-0 to 6-9 TH, Saudi's next decent chance has to turn into a finish soon, or the market just keeps drifting towards stalemate.
Still 0-0 at 6-9 minutes, and that Saudi double change really is a reshuffle, fresh legs up top, but also a more cautious bounce behind it. The danger now is simple. If they push numbers on Cape Verde, we'll fancy that first pass in the space the moment Saudi lose their shape.
The draw is still the clear favorite in the higher range, with both win outcomes pinned in the lows and no real repricing despite that Saudi chance a few minutes ago. At 0-0 on 7-0 minutes, the market's basically saying time is the draw's best player unless someone finally converts.
70 minutes gone and it's still 0-0. The tension is absolutely thick out there. Saudi Arabia's substitutions have injected a bit more bite, but Cape Verde look happy to stay compact and make this a game of patience. One lapse, one clean final ball, and it flips.
The draw is still priced as the clear favorite in the high range, with both win sides stuck in the lows and no real shift, despite Saudi's recent uptick in chances. At 0-0 on 7-0 minutes, that's the market backing the clock to keep squeezing this toward a stalemate.
70 minutes gone, and we've got another drinks break. Still 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia. That pause might actually suit Saudi after those changes and that one sharp save forced from Abu Al-Shamat. Now it's about resetting and keeping discipline after that recent booking.
The draw is still the clear favorite around the highs, with both teams' win chances sitting in the lows and no real breakout despite some chunky positioning on the sides. At 0-0 with the 7-1 Saint, the market's basically pricing the clock as the main edge unless Saudi finally turn that extra urgency into a finish. The draw is still the market's anchor in the high range, with both Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia stuck in the
71 minutes, still 0-0 in Cape Verde. Make a change. Laros Duarte is on for Jamiro Montero. That feels like fresh legs in midfield to keep their shape and energy, because Saudi Arabia have started to ask sharper questions since those earlier switches.
The draw is still sitting in the mid two highs, with both win sides in the low 2-0s, so despite all that big positioning, the market's basically unchanged. At 0-0 with the 7-1 Saint, that's the clock squeezing everyone toward a stalemate, unless Saudi finally turn that extra urgency into a goal. The draw is still the clear price leader in the high range, with both Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia hovering around the lows and no real shift despite the big tickets. At 0 in the 7-2 ND, the clock keeps doing the work for stalemate unless Saudi finally turn that pressure into a finish.
72 minutes on the clock, and it's still 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia, and you can feel how tight every touch is now. After that Abu Al-Shamat saving the fresh legs in midfield for Cape Verde, it really does look like one clean chance or one Ras foul decides it. 73 minutes gone, and it's still 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia. This is absolutely on a knife edge now. Saudi have already shown they can work Bozina with that Abu Al-Shamat effort, but with Al-Dosari on a yellow, they've got to stay smart when they step in.
The draw is still the market's anchor in the high range, with Saudi in the mids and Cape Verde down in the mid-teens, so there's no real repricing despite the big orders. At 0-0 in the 7-3 RD, that's the clock squeezing this toward a stalemate unless Saudi finally land a clean finish.
73 minutes, still 0-0, and it's a foul by João Paulo for Cape Verde. In a game this tight, that's the kind of cheap set-piece moment Saudi Arabia will want to turn into their next real look at goal after that earliest save from Vosinha.
The draw still the dominant price in the high range. While Cape Verde are down in the high teens and Saudi sit mid-so, the market's barely budged as time drains away. At 0-0 in the 7-4 TH, that keeps the pressure on Saudi to turn these set-piece moments into a winner fast. The draw is still the clear favorite, just under 6-0, with both win sides stuck around the lows and heavy sell side liquidity keeping any late swing contained. At 0-0 in the 7-4 TH, that pricing says the clock is winning. Saudi need to turn this next spell into a real finish quickly.
73 minutes and it's still 0-0, but Cape Verde concede the foul. Dini Borges clips his man, and Saudi Arabia have a free kick on the right wing. In a game this tight, that's exactly the kind of set-piece platform Saudi will want to turn into their next proper chance.
The draw is still priced around the high E's, with both win outcomes parked in the lows, and that heavy sell-side depth, keeping a lid on any late swing. At 0-0 in a 7-4 TH, it's screaming that Saudi need a clean breakthrough soon, or this just grinds into stalemate. The draw is still the market's big favorite at just under 6-0, with both teams' win chances stuck around the lows and no late surge showing up in pricing. At 0-0 in the 7-5 TH, that's the clock tightening the screws. Saudi need a real finish soon, or the stalemate price keeps hardening.
76 minutes is still 0-0, and Saudi Arabia simply can't let these set pieces drift by. One good delivery into the danger zone means nothing if nobody attacks it. In a match this tight, that first aggressive run to the penalty spot could be the difference between a half chance and a real opening. 76 minutes and it's still 0-0, but Cape Verde have just carved out a huge opening. Laros Duarte right-footed effort from the middle is saved straight down the middle by Al Owais. Then the corner comes in and Pico Lopez gets his header all wrong. Kleiman is sending it high and wide.
The draw is still the clear market favorite at about 6, with both win sides stuck in the lows and no real repricing despite that big order flow. At 0 is in the 7-6 TH, the clock is the star. Saudi need a clean breakthrough soon, or this keeps drifting toward stalemate.
76 minutes, still 0-0, and you can feel Cape Verde's substitutions have given them real punch. Duarte arriving in the box, Pico Lopez getting on the end of that corner. Saudi Arabia, look, caught in two minds now. Step up for a winner, and that first ball in behind suddenly becomes dangerous.
The draw is holding around 6-0, with Cape Verde and Saudi both near the lows, and that big sell side depth is still capping any late swing. At 0 in the 7-7 TH, the market's basically saying time is the defending champion unless someone finishes the next clear chance. The draw is still priced around 6-0, with both win sides stuck near the lows, and the book looks heavy on the offer, so it's hard for either team to force a late repricing. At 0-0 in a 7-7 TH, that's the market leaning to stalemate, unless Cape Verde convert the next big chance.
77 minutes and it's still 0-0, and you can feel this one stretching now. Saudi Arabia are stepping higher to force the issue, but after that Duarte chance and the Lopes header, Cape Verde will fancy that first ball in behind on the break. 76 gone, still 0-0, and it's a corner to Saudi Arabia conceded by João Paulo. This is exactly the kind of dead ball moment they've got to attack with real conviction, because open play chances have been at a premium in this second half.
The draw is still the clear favorite, a touch above 6-0, with both win sides parked around the lows and a lot of sell side liquidity sitting overhead. At 0-0 in the 7-8 TH, that's the market telling you time is tightening the net around a stalemate unless someone lands a clean finish. The draw is still sitting just over 6-0 with both win sides stuck around 2-0 and a very heavy wall of offers overhead, keeping any late swing muted. At 0 with a 7H, that pricing says Saudi Arabia need a decisive moment soon or the stalemate just keeps hardening. The draws. Now the clear anchor in the low SOR range with both Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia basically pinned around 2-0 and a lot of sell-side liquidity overhead keeping moves muted. At 0-0 in the 7-9 TH each. That's the market saying the clock is winning, unless Saudi finally find one clean finish.
79 minutes gone and it's still 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia, but that Saudi high line is starting to flirt with danger now. Cape Verde have already shown it with that Laros Duarte chance and the Pico Lopez header, one clean ball over the top, and it's a foot race to decide this. 79 minutes on the clock and it's still 0-0, but we've just had a scrappy little spell of fouls, either side of a blocked J. Paulo hit from range. That's Saudi Arabia getting bodies out to shut the shot down, and Cape Verde will feel those second balls are there if they keep arriving late outside the box.
The draw still the anchor in the low C range with Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia both pinned around the 2-0 mark and heavy offers overhead, keeping any late swing muted. At 0-0 in the 7-9 TH, that pricing says the clock is still the favorite unless Saudi finally land one clean finish.
80 minutes gone and it's still 0-0, and you can sense Saudi Arabia edging the line higher now, trying to force that one decisive moment. But after Cape Verde's grit, they chancing that Lopez header every step. Saudi take forward, leave space for a direct ball in behind.
The draw has firmed into the mid-Zul range now, with both win sides slipping into the high teens and a big wall of offers still sitting overhead. At 0-0 on 8-0 minutes, that's the market leaning hard to a stalemate unless Saudi Arabia finally turn this higher line into one clean finish.
79 minutes and Cape Verde have another go. Gary Rodriguez cuts in from the right side of the box and his left-footed strike is blocked. Laros Duarte again involved in the build-up, and Saudi Arabia are having to throw bodies in the way to keep this at 0-0.
The draw has tightened into the mid-Jui range now with both win outcomes down in the high teens and a lot of sell liquidity still sitting overhead. At 0 in the 8-1 minute, that's the market basically pricing no late winner unless Saudi Arabia finally turned this push into one clean finish. The draw is still priced in the mid range with both teams' win chances stuck around the high teens and a heavy offer side bookkeeping, any late swing muted. At 0-0 in the 8-1 that's the market saying the clock is a front runner unless Saudi finally find a clean finish. The draw has hardened into the mid-range now with both Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia down in the high teens and the book still stacked with sell-side liquidity overhead. At 0 in the 8-2 MD minute, that pricing screams stalemate unless Cape Verde finally turn one of these breaks into a clean finish.
81 minutes, still 0-0, and Abdullah Al Hamdan gives away another foul for Saudi Arabia. Pico Lopez wins the free kick deep in Cape Verde's defensive half. That's a cheap way to hand Cape Verde a breather and a chance to get their lines up before the 82 minutes, and Saudi Arabia make another change. Woteb Harbi is on for Nawaf Buwashu, and it stays 0-0. That feels like a late tweak to keep the backline fresh because Cape Verde have shown they'll spring forward the moment Saudi step up.
The draw is now sitting in the high C range with both win sides pushed down into the mid to high teens and a really heavy offer side book still capping any late swing. At 0-0 in the 8-2 ND, that's the market daring someone to nick it, but pricing says the stalemate is still the base case. The draw has now firmed into the high range while both Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia are pushed down into the mid to high teens, and that heavy offer side depth is still capping any late swing. At 0-0 in the 8-3 RD, the market's basically saying the clock is the favorite unless Saudi Arabia finally land one clean finish. The draw has edged up into the highs down, Now, with both win prices squeezed into the mid to high teens and a big wall of offers still sitting above the market. At 83 minutes and 0-0, that's the clock tightening the game into a stalemate unless Saudi Arabia find one clean finish late.
84 minutes, still 0-0, and Saudi Arabia have to make those wide moments count. With more than one runner arriving, one body in the box is easy to defend. Cape Verde will happily stay compact, soak it up, and look for that one moose touch to launch the break.
The draw has firmed to roughly 7-10 now, with both win outcomes squeezed into the mid-teens and a big offer side wall, still capping any late swing. At 84 minutes and 0-0, the market's basically saying the clock is winning. Unless Saudi Arabia finally find that one clean finish.
At 84 minutes, still 0-0, and Gary Rodriguez is exactly the kind of figure Cape Verde can lean on when legs are heavy and decisions get rushed. From night shifts in the Dutch Postal Service to wearing the armband, he's built for these late moments, and he's already shown he'll pull the trigger when the opening appears.
The draw is basically at 7-10 now, with both win sides stuck in the mid-teens and the book still showing chunky sell walls overhead. At 84 minutes at 0-0, that pricing says the clock's in control unless Saudi Arabia finally turn this pressure into one clean finish. The draw is still sitting around 7-10, and both win outcomes are stuck in the mid-teens with big offer side walls overhead, so there's no real late swing being priced in. At 84 minutes at 0-0, that keeps a stalemate as a base case unless Saudi Arabia finally convert one clean chance. The draw has pushed up into the low pre-age range now, with both team wins squeezed into the mid-teens and a lot of sell-side liquidity still capping any late move. At 85 minutes and 0-0, the market's basically saying the clock is the favorite unless Saudi Arabia finally land one clean finish.
85 minutes, and it's still 0-0 between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia, and now it's pure nerve management as much as tactics. That little fumble at the back is the warning sign. One sloppy touch, one rush clearance, and this match finally swings. 85 minutes, still Cape Verde, 0-0 Saudi Arabia, and we just had a flurry of efforts. Aldo Sari's hit from range is blocked, then Kevin Pina drags one high and wide, and Nuno da Costa can't keep his chance down from the right. It's frantic now. Both teams are shooting out sight, but the final touch is letting them down.
The draw is now priced around the lows with both teams' win chances down in the mid-teens, and the book looks heavy on the offer side, so breakouts are still being capped. At 5 minutes at 0-0, that's the market backing the clock to see this out, unless Saudi Arabia finally nick one late. The draw is now priced around the low CO range while both team wins are down in the low to mid-teens, and there's still a big wall of sell liquidity overhead, capping any late swing. At 86 minutes and 0-0, the market's basically betting the clock sees this out. Unless Saudi Arabia finally find one clean finish. The draw is still priced around the low true range, and the book looks top heavy with sell liquidity, so neither side's win is getting much late. Respect. At 86 minutes and 0-0, that's the market saying time is the favorite, unless Saudi Arabia finally land a clean finish. The draw has jumped to roughly 3/4 now, with both Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia down near the low teens, so the market's leaning hard into a stalemate as we hit 87 minutes. That pricing says any late winner likely comes from a single mistake or set piece, rather than sustained control.
86 minutes, and Cape Verde have just had a huge little burst. Wagner Pina's effort from the middle is blocked. Then Gary Rodriguez snatches that one from close range and can't hit the target. And then the flag goes up on Rodriguez. Cape Verde are living right on that last line now as this stays 0-0.
The draw is now priced around 3/4 with both win outcomes down in the low teens, and the book still looks heavy on the sell side, so late breakouts aren't getting much respect. At 87 minutes at 0-0, that's the market screaming clock management unless someone nicks it from a dead ball. The draw is now priced in the highest range with both team wins down around the low teens and the book still stacked with heavy sell side liquidity above at 88 minutes at 0-0. That's the market basically paying for the stalemate unless Saudi Arabia steal it with one late clean moment.
88 minutes gone and it's still Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia, but Cape Verde are the ones asking the sharper questions right now. Gary Rodriguez has brought that direct running and quick cutbacks, and Saudi Arabia have to be spotless on those second balls and any late set piece defending. 88 minutes and we've got a VAR check underway here. Still Cape Verde 0, Saudi Arabia 0. It's come straight after that Saudi corner, so everyone's eyes are on what happened in the box. Any little tug or touch could suddenly decide this game.
The draw is holding in the high range with both win prices squeezed into low double digits, and the book still looks offer heavy, so a late breakout isn't being paid for. At 8 minutes and 0-0 with that VAR check after the Saudi corner, the market's basically saying one set piece decision could flip everything. The draw is now priced just under 8 and 10, while both team wins are down around 1 and 10, and the book looks lopsided with heavy sell walls above the win sides. At 89 minutes at 0-0, that's the market screaming, no late heroics unless this VAR moment or a set piece finally breaks. The draw has firmed to about 4 and 5 now, with both team wins down near 1 and 10, and the win book still capped by heavy sell side walls. At 90 minutes at 0-0, that pricing is basically locking in the stalemate, unless this last passage produces a single decisive moment.
90 minutes on the clock, and it's still Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia. But Cape Verde are playing like they want the winner, not the point. Gary Rodriguez has been the spark. Those direct runs and cutbacks are forcing Saudi Arabia to defend first and ask questions later.
The draw is now priced around 4 and 5, with both Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia down near 1 and 10. So the market's basically paying up for 0-0 as we hit 9-0. That leaves almost no room for error. One stoppage time breakthrough would be a brutal late flip. The draw has tightened into the mid-buy range now, with both team wins pushed down into single digits as the book leans hard into stalemate. At 9 minutes at 0-0, that's the market saying stoppage time is about survival, not style. One clean chance could still rip it up.
We're at 9:01 and it's still Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia. It's just right on the edge of a landmark result for a nation of barely 500,000. But it's pure survival mode now. One late set piece or one loose clearance and all that work can vanish in a heartbeat.
The draw is now priced in the mid-bow range, with both Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia win chances down in single digits, so the market's basically paying up for 0-0. At 9:01, that means one late set piece is the only realistic way this pricing gets flipped. The draw has surged to around 9 and 10 now, with both win outcomes crushed into single digits and the win books looking capped by big sell walls. At 9:01 in a 0-0, that's the market basically pricing hold what you got, unless someone lands a stoppage time set piece. The draw is now priced into high bow range, with both team wins pushed down into low single digits, so the market's leaning even harder into 0-0 as we sit in 9-0-1. With 5 minutes added, it's still one dead ball moment that can overturn everything.
90+1, and it's still Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia with 5 minutes added on the board. Saudi Arabia do look a touch passive here. If they want the win, they gotta push the lineup, get it wide early, and attack the box with numbers before time just bleeds away.
The draw has now firmed to roughly 9 and 10, with both team wins down around 5 to 6%, and the win sides look capped by huge sell walls. At 9:02 in a 0-0, that's the market basically calling. No time left unless Saudi Arabia conjure one clean set piece finish.
90+2 still Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia, and every touch now feels like it's got a consequence. Saudi Arabia will be happy to keep it simple and keep the ball, but Cape Verde, no one overhead cross or one sloppy first touch can flip this match in an instant.
The draw is now basically priced at around 9 and 10 again, with both win outcomes crushed into the low single digits as the market leans hard into stalemate. At 9.03 in a 0-0, that says the clock is the main defender. Now, unless Saudi Arabia can steal it from a dead ball, the draw is now priced in the low just range, with both team wins down around the mid-single digits and the win side still look capped by massive sell walls. At 9.03 and a 0-0, the market's basically saying it takes one last set piece to stop this ending level.
94 minutes gone, still Cape Verde, 0-0 Saudi Arabia, and the clock is absolutely screaming at Saudi Arabia now. If they're going to nick it, it has to be early. 90+2, and Bozina stands tall. He smothers Al Hamdan's host range right footer straight down the middle, and that might be Saudi Arabia's last clean look from open play. Then Al Brodkin goes into the book for a lay foul, and Cape Verde use it to breathe and reset with Moreira on for Badnapina at 9.04.
The draw is now priced in the low J range again, with Cape Verde down around 2 and Saudi Arabia about 4. So the market is almost fully committed to 0-0 this deep in stoppage time. At 9.04, Saudi Arabia basically need one clean dead ball delivery right now because open play time is nearly gone. The draw is holding in the low Joe range, with Cape Verde down around 2 and Saudi Arabia about 4, and the win book still looks smothered by heavy sell side. At 9.04 in a 0-0, Saudi Arabia need one perfect set piece immediately, or this is drifting to a locked stalemate. The draw is now priced in the mid-sir range, while both team wins are basically down in the low single digits, and the win sides look heavily capped at 9-0. That's the market screaming, nearly locked. Unless Saudi Arabia land one last dead ball moment.
94 minutes, there's still Cape Verde 0-0. Saudi Arabia with the clock squeezing the life out of this finish. Saudi Arabia's best chance now is exactly that. Early ball into the channels in a pat penalty area because Cape Verde are sitting in and just hacking. Clear anything that drops.
The draw has effectively gone to almost locked, with pricing up around the highs, while both team wins are basically pinned near 0, and there's no real offer left on the draw side. At 9.05 in a 0-0, that's the market saying only a freak late winner changes the story now.
And that's it. Full time at 9.06. Cape Verde 0, Saudi Arabia 0. Right at the debt, Gary Rodriguez is flagged offside, and that pretty much sums up the finish. One last run, but the timing just not quite there as both sides settle for a point.
The draw is basically locked near certainty now, with both win outcomes priced as near impossible and the book showing heavy sell walls on either side. With it still 0-0 in the whistle effectively here, the only thing that changes this is a truly last gasp winner. The draw is fully locked at essentially 1-0 now, with both team win outcomes marked down to near 0 and no real offer left to buy the draw. With full time confirmed at 0-0, this one's settled in the market exactly as it finished on the pitch.
Full time at 9.06, and it finishes Cape Verde 0, Saudi Arabia 0. Late on Cape Verde's defensive discipline held firm. Diro Uarte kept stepping in to win tackles and then dropped deeper to close the spaces. And Saudi Arabia just couldn't find a clean final opening.
The draw is now fully locked at effectively 1-0-0, with both team win outcomes priced as dead and big sell walls sitting on either side. With full time confirmed at 0-0, there's no late goal risk left. This is a settled stalemate both on the pitch and in the market.
Full time at 9.06 it ends. Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia, and that late yellow for Faraz Albrikin just underlined Saudi Arabia's frustration in stoppage time. In a game this tight, one missed time challenge doesn't just stop play, it kills momentum and lets Cape Verde breathe. Full time at 9:06, and it ends Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia. Dero Dutorte's game management was massive late on, stepping in to win it, then dropping in to shut the middle and slow everything down when Saudi Arabia tried to force one last opening. Full time at 9:06, and it ends Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia, and that Gary Rodriguez moment right at the end will sting, even with the offside flag up. He still had to put it away, and it's the kind of finish you'll see replayed because the timing and the composure just didn't meet. Full time at 9:06, and it finishes Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia. That late Bozina save and the stoppage time fouls told the story. Plenty of tension, but not enough quality in the final action to turn pressure into a winner.
The draw is now fully locked at effectively 1-0, with both Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia win outcomes priced as 0, and all the remaining depths sitting on the losing sides. With full time confirmed at 0-0, there's no late twist left. This is settled exactly as the scoreboard reads.
Full time at 9:06, and it ends Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia. That late Bozina save on Al-Hamdan was the clearest opening in stoppage time, and after that, the fouls and the offside flag just drained the last bit of rhythm out of it.
The draw contract is now fully locked at essentially 1-0-0, with both team win outcomes pinned near 0 and all the remaining depths stranded on the losing sides. Full time at 0-0 means there's no late goal risk left. This one settled exactly as it finished on the pitch.
Full time at 9:06, and it ends Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia. That late Bozina stop from Al-Hamdan was the one moment that really threatened to decide it, but after that, the fouls and the offside call just bled the last seconds away. Full time at 9:06, and Ace Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia, but the emotion is absolutely with Cape Verde tonight. For a debutant nation to come through a World Cup group on their first try, built on moments like Bozina's late save and sheer defensive discipline, that's a milestone they'll never forget. Full time at 9:06, and it ends Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia. That late Bozina save from Al-Hamdan is the one clear moment you circle, but in the end, neither side found the final touch to turn tension into a winner. Full time at 9:06, and it ends Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia. That late Bozina save from Al-Hamdan is the moment you'll remember, and after that, the fouls and the offside flag just drained the last chance of a winner. Full time at 9:06, and it ends Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia that late. Bozina saving Al-Hamdan was the one real hold your breath moment, but neither side found the clean final touch to win it. Full time at 9:06, Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia, and it's a stalemate right to the last whistle. That late Bozina save on Al-Hamdan was the one moment that nearly nicked it, but the final actions just weren't clean enough. Full time at 9:06, Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia, and it's a point apiece after a tense finish. That stoppage save from Bozina and Al-Hamdan was the one moment that really demanded a winner, but it never came. Full time at 9:06, they finishes Cape Verde 0-0 Saudi Arabia, a point each after a tight, nervy ending. That late Bozina save from Al-Hamdan was the one clear chance to steal it, but the finishing just never landed.